Hey everybody, this is Sue Warren, aka My Life on Wheels. In my intro videos, I had talked to you guys a little bit about what I was going to be saying in these videos. I know I covered a little bit of my faith so far, and showing you at least one piece of equipment for my medical equipment that I use. Today, I figured I'd kind of back away from those two subjects for a little bit, and I'll talk to you today about my, uh, one of my hobbies, which is playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Dungeons and Dragons can be pretty complicated. I started in edition 3.5, never really got the hang of 4th edition, and and now I'm playing 5th edition. Tabletop role-playing games, at least in the past, and I know some what they call dungeon masters or game masters, depending on what game you play. Some are actually even still deviating away from the term dungeon master, and just going with the standard game master. Now, the game master is the one who creates a storyline that he or she wants to have the players play out. The players then kind of fill in the blanks. Depending on the player's actions is how the story will go. And there are some sessions that derailed a lot, and it's pretty fun. But I'll talk about derailment in the session here in a minute. Now, I know back in the 70s, 80s ish time area, D&D didn't have a really good rap. Everybody was involved in the Satanic Panic movement that had gone on, which I will kind of touch base on that later in the video myself. Now, for me, D&D isn't inherently bad, but like with all games, whether it's a video game, for console, or a computer game, or even a tabletop game like this, caution is always a good thing to have. I might as well go and just talk about it now since I'm already starting. With any type of fantasy gaming that you do, there's always that fine line that you have to be aware of. Never mix reality with fantasy. Because if you do that, you could fall into the pit of, well, I am this character. I am the embodiment of this character. This character's name is my name. I live the way this character lives. Which was one of the reasons I was kind of hesitant to even play D&D back then. Just because I know from experience how that line can easily be crossed. And I've had friends, sadly enough, who have crossed that line themselves. But, as long as you keep your wits about you, pay attention to what you're doing. If you feel like you're having an off day mental health wise, and you have a session that night, whether you're the game master or a player, back away. Your health is more important than a game, and other players should understand this, and a lot of them will. But anyway, that's all I'm going to kind of touch on there. But speaking of mental health, D&D is actually one of the ways that I personally do kind of manage my mental health. It kind of gives me an outlet. Like, if I'm really frustrated, really having a bad day, and I don't want to take it out on my husband our roommate, or other friends or family, my husband will run a small, what we call side session, which is like a one quest session. Nothing big, nothing, broad story. It can tie into the story, it doesn't have to, but he will kind of make a little bit of a session, so I can play, I can kind of get my frustrations out, and then after I can be like, okay, that's done, that's over, back to the real world, I'm better, now let's tackle the rest of the day. Now, my favorite character that I've ever played, and I'm so glad I'm playing her again, is Erilyn. She is a level... Oh, that's what I get for not paying attention. A level 7 barbarian and a level 27 barbarian, and a level 10 cleric. Now, I know by book standards it only goes up to level 20. That's kind of the fun of D&D. That's the fun of really, any tabletop roleplay game. The books are primarily there for guidelines. You don't have to totally, what's called, I can talk. You don't have to completely and utterly do what's known as raw or rules as written. Now, when you're first starting out, that's a good thing to follow, just so you can get the hang of the game. Kind of learn your basics. Get your feet in the water and get wet, so to speak. But as you become more advanced, more seasoned in playing, you can kind of branch out, go to what we call homebrew, which is what Erilyn kind of sort of is. She is a half orc, half wolf kind character. So, yeah, I mean, some tabletop games are kind of more, you have to play by the book, whereas like with D&D, it's more, it's up to the game master or dungeon master, whichever, you prefer. It's up to his or her discretion if things are going to go by the book or rules as written, or if the book is just there to kind of give guidelines, like help with, figuring armor stats, health stats, weapon stats. Now, generally, it's played with a collection of 7 dice. Well, this is a standard 7 dice set of different shapes and variations. This is what we call a D20. It's got 20 different, 20 sides on the die, so hence the name D20. Some DMs will let you use this as your attack roll, or for any important roll you have to do, such as perception, persuasion, medicine. It's all up to who heads up the game. A D8. I do recommend watching it when you ever drop these, because these and a D4, which I'll show you here in a second, can be pretty painful if you step on them, especially barefoot. I don't care if this is a plastic or if it's one of the metal. These up the foot still hurts. Now that elusive D4 I was telling you all about. Yeah. Now for this one, I don't know how well you can see. Oh, there we go. But the 2 numbers up at the top, and then we have the 4 down here. The bottom number whenever you roll is what your roll is, plus whatever modifier you're told to add. Like for persuasion, it's always a wisdom, or for an attack, it's strength or dexterity. Sometimes a wisdom attack, especially if you play a heavy magic user. a D6. Now, there are some weapons that use the D4, the D8. There's some that also use the D6 here, which is like your standard, think Monopoly die. Only instead of the dots, it's got the numbers actually. See if I can get that glare off. Turn that upside down. It's got the numbers actually written rather than just the dots. Though you can play with, you know, the ones that have the dots. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, when you're making your character, what you do is... Let me grab Erlen's sheet here and I'll show you. Up here you have a column of 6 stats. You take 4 of these and you roll, taking away the lowest number, add the other 3 dice, and that'll give you your stat. Now some DMs, or GMs, whichever, will allow you to make rerolls. You know, if you get below a certain number, or some will say no reroll at all, which I do believe was a 3.5 rules is written rule. I think it's 5. I'm new to the whole game mastering aspect myself, so I'm still learning. We also have a D10. Let's see if I can find the 10 here. Which the 10 is just denoted by a, can I get that in the shadow there? A 0 on the dice rather than a 10. This is one of the older original sets. My aunt had given this this one and a bunch of others to me before she passed away. So this one's real special to me. Oops, what am I doing? And then we have what we call the percentile die. As you can see, it's got denotations of 50 on there. This along with this we call a D100. You roll it. This number denotes your 10 value. This denotes obviously 1 through 10. If you get, let me see if I can, there it is. If I can do this properly. If you get a roll that looks, like that, it has the double 0 there and the 0 there, that is a natural, what we call a 100. Obvious. There are several other games out there that have their own different types of systems for dice and whatnot. I know the old Marvel game from, I believe it was the late 1980s, early 1990s, uses what they call a stone system, which I'm still trying to work out because, yeah, that one looks fun to play. And I know some people have taken other fandoms that they like and have kind of made their own games as well. I don't highly recommend that unless you have permission. But, you know, for me, no. Now I know there's also some online gaming stuff. Like, take for example my favorite book series, Dragon Rise of Pern. I believe I touched on that 2 videos ago. I know there are some online role-playing sites, as well as what we call PBEM, or play by emails. But when Anne McGaffrey had, the original author, had given permission for us to play in her world of Pern, she had given us a list of rules we had to follow, or we have to follow even to this day. It's also just, it's respectful to get permission, you know, from, you know, whoever you need to. It's just respectful, guys. So I do that side of things. Um, but for the most part, yeah. I mean, okay, I forgot what I was going to say. Give me a sec. You know, just, when you're role playing, like I said early in the video, just, fine line, make sure, oh, make sure, that you know that the game is fantasy versus reality. Um, what was I going to say? Okay, I've been doing that a lot lately. Anyway, for new game masters, I don't necessarily recommend jumping in head first unless you've actually played the game as a player for about a year. Just, a good game master to me is one who's played the game first and then switched into, okay, I want to head up my own game. Also, for game masters, new and old, a session zero is essential, or even back-to-back session zeros for like 2 or 3 sessions. Session zeros cover everything from boundaries of players to rules that are expected at the table, which is mostly common courtesy type stuff. I mean, setting up the background, um, getting your players more kind of familiarized with the lore that you are trying to, convey, have them become a part of, whatever. Session zeros are definitely, in my opinion, necessary for, kind of that background. Make sure, you're not going to do something within the game that's going to cause a player to have a mental health crisis. Make sure your rules are established. Make sure, if you have consequences, like there was one person whose campaign I was playing in, if we did something that was against the rules, we would be docked so many experience points. Because that wasn't fair that it wouldn't be fair that we'd get away with it and other players wouldn't. So, and plus, rule breaking just takes the fun out of it. And to players, be respectful to the GM, DM, whatever, whoever heads up the campaign wants to be called. It is vitally important for politeness from both the GM or DM and the players to have a fun game. I've been in sessions and I've seen sessions where players and GMs have kind of butted heads. It really kind of just takes the fun out of it for everybody else. And I think that's pretty much the basic of what I wanted to talk to you today about when it comes to D&D. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and I will answer them in a future video, because I do plan on doing a Q&A probably in the next month or two, maybe. We'll see how things go. But until next time, as always, stay safe, stay blessed.